The views and opinions expressed on the Cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of OldMilk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. On this episode of the Cap Podcast, we react to Please Don't Cry by Rapsody. Welcome back. This is episode 507 of your critical but accurate tour through hip hop, the Cap Podcast. We are your tour guides. I am Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you might be tuning in. Feel free to go ahead and join the conversation by leaving a comment, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. Taylor, how are you doing today?
Terribly. These Bay Area allergies are killing me. There's like, I was looking into it, and there's like so many different types of grass and plants and everything. Like, I wake up every morning with my eyes like swollen shut. My like sinuses hurt. Everything is just, bro, I gotta get out of here. It's soon.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner. But like, this has been way worse than my first other 2 summers here. But man,
It's like
I'm
the
fighting.
closer and closer the date comes, like
I
the
know.
longer and longer it seems it is
feels
away.
like it feels like I'm being punished.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to this real quick so that you can go ahead and take care of yourself. On this episode of the Cat Podcast, we are reacting to Please Don't Cry by Rapsody. The album is 22 tracks long, 1 hour and 5 minutes long, featuring Felicia Rashad 3 times, Hit Boy, BB Dixon, Erica Badu, Alex Isley, BB Borelli, Kez Namdi, Nicole Brim twice, Lil Wayne, Baby Tate, Mantragold, and Amber Navrin. Once again, feel free to join the conversation by leaving a comment in the comments below. That being said, Taylor, what were your first initial reactions to Please Don't Cry?
We talked about it a little before we got on. And this isn't like out of left field for Rapsody at all. It's kind of like, who she is as an artist. But like, it's so nice sometimes to put on an album and hear about someone's real life, and not like and not to say that other rap albums aren't about real life, but it's like, I feel like definitely there's certain like a cruising altitude that we've reached now where like certain things are just, you don't get to hear about everyone's like individual experience anymore. It's a lot of like, things have gotten pretty flat. And so for an album like this to come out, like, I can overlook the fact that it's 22 songs because it's like there's substance there, and that's like you're hearing about real experiences on each one. So that was my main thing. It's what I expected. You know what I mean? Like, that's since Rapsody was doing songs with Mac Miller in a diner in like 2011. You know what I mean? Like, that's been what. But I expect, from her raps, what I think everyone does. So, it's, we've talked a lot about the adults being back in the room this year, and I think this is a great example of that. This is like Blue Lips by Schoolboy Q, very personal album, right? We're getting a lot of like real life talk. This album, the sound is different, but it's that same late 30s, early 40s, like, all right, we're here. You know what I mean? Like the adults are in the room.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the one thing that, like you said, like the one thing that really brings the best out of this album is how vulnerable Rapsody is on this album. The way that she raps about like her insecurities, about her being in relationships, also like with how she's viewed in hip hop. She does rap about how she's viewed in hip hop a lot, which I found interesting. I found that to be honestly, I found like it's true what she's saying, but it sucks that it's true what she's saying, because and if you're like the stereotypical or the prototypical female rapper isn't Rapsody. It's Meg Thee Stallion, it's Ice Spice, it's Lotto, it's Nicki Minaj. It's like these rappers who are all known for rapping about like certain types of things. And then you have someone like Rapsody who is more lyrical, more intentional with her bars. There's more substance, as you said, in her bars as well. And also the way that she presents herself is nowhere close to the same way that like I said before, like Meg Thee Stallion, Lotto, Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj, even Cardi B present themselves. So because of that, I feel like she kind of suffers because she doesn't get the same attention that the other rappers get. And again, it sucks because she creates such good music. I also like that and actually no, going back to what I just said, like another example of her being honestly disrespected in a way, because like the attention isn't really on her, is typically when I go through albums. I listen to it the first time just to like get a feel for the sound, and then the second listen through, I will pull up Genius and I will like read the lyrics as I'm listening to it. There are so many songs. As we are recording on Saturday, May 18th at 2:01 Eastern Time PM. There are so many songs on Genius that don't even have pages for them. So I'm trying to read through them and I can't because for whatever reason um they're not printed out. And that was disappointing for me. I don't even care about the annotations as much. Like we're gonna make our own interpretations on this stuff, but really just like for me to just like have the words there and read them so I make sure that I'm getting them all correctly. I wasn't able to do that, which kind of sucks. And I also find that to be disrespectful because like out of all the rappers who are women in hip hop, Rhapsody is definitely one where her lyrics should be printed out because her lyrics are, as I said before, more intentional than most rappers. I also think before I hand it back to you, the attention to detail with the production on this album is really apparent as well. Even when you look at the attention to detail with the cover art and stuff like that. I love the yellow background with like the gray picture of Rhapsody with like the red tear. That's really nice. But as far as the production goes, like there are certain songs where you could tell they're playing around with like the surround sound effect. Like there will be times where I hear something in one ear and then there's a response in the other ear. And I really appreciate that attention to detail as well. Sometimes there are instruments that are only played in one ear, and I think that does a really good job of building the atmosphere for this album, which ultimately is a quasi therapy session. It takes place in a hair salon. That's what the first track is. She's expecting you. Rhapsody is going to a hair salon. And I believe like she did some promo like built around the concept of being in a hair salon as well. And I really like the fact that she chose to choose that atmosphere because for many black women, and on the black men's side, like it's the barber shop, but for many black people in general, like going to get your hair done is more than you getting your hair done. It's like an experience. It's a place for you to vent. It's a place for you to be at peace. And I appreciate that Rhapsody takes that and uses that to really set up this quasi therapy session that is this album. And I think just the world building, the atmosphere, the beats, the lyrics, the topics that she discusses as well. I think it just all comes together so beautifully. And this is really one of the best traditional rap albums of the year so far.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like what you were saying about where Rhapsody stands among, other women who are rapping today, you're right. It is a completely different type of music, right? And I mean, to me, Rhapsody is like a considerably better rapper than anyone you mentioned.
Mhm.
Just in terms, like, you know what I mean? Just in terms of maybe not like hit maker, maybe not bigger star, like obviously, like not, but it's like when I listen to this, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like this is why I listen to the music that I do. Like it's not like even when our favorite artists come out, right? When the Futures and Drakes drop and all that, like the super hype songs, like I'm usually skipping those. Like if I hear them out, then I want to play them. But in terms of like playing them for myself, like usually I'm skipping all that. And I do think that you know as we've developed over the last couple years, or as we've had like this kind of like very powerful group of women kind of like take over
Mhm.
their corner of hip hop. It definitely is like I feel like more geared towards like party music in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Towards hits, which is great. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes this genre so special is that you can have all that. You can have like the very vulnerable, like an album like Mr. Brown, that's been we've been talking about, but you can also have like Flo Millie doing her thing, and we're gonna talk about both sides of it. So I think that's cool, and I think that for me personally, like what I like to listen to, Rhapsody's so much closer to what I'm trying to hear, and what you were talking about, like the world building. I think that's so important because I do think we've lost a little bit of artists in all genres, but especially here. It's not really like it used to be so focused on like their relationship with the world, right?
Mhm.
Right, like that's why I started like liking Kanye when I was in middle school, and I was hearing his older albums for the first time, but also like going along for the ride. But like I think recently there's less world building because like the world is that artist. Like
Yeah.
that's the world, you know what I mean? And Drake's a perfect example of that. Like we're supposed to know like all of his like acquaintances from the last almost 20 years by first name. You know what I mean? And like that's how you keep up with that. It's not like this relationship between an artist and the world. It's like, no, the artist is the world and you have to go into their world. And so like I definitely prefer this Rhapsody album to something like that because it's like, man, it's the real lived experiences that get put on wax in a way that is authentic. You can just hear it, right? Like, and I think that some people hear stuff like that and they're like, oh, that's boring, and it's like, all right, well, it might not be for you, but it's the farthest thing from boring. Like real life, talking about real life is not boring. Like, there's obviously ways to do it in a boring way, but I've noticed this trend recently where anything that's just about like regular life and isn't about like buying out the Chanel store or whatever is like considered boring now. It's like, no, that's boring. And it's like I disagree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this album, like, because you have songs on here that like we'll talk about, but like you have songs where they're turned up on here, you know, like Back in My Bag or Raw with Wayne. Like, you know what I mean? Those are some of
Mhm.
my favorites on here. But it's because they come within that those like real life. So you get to like go through because like Back in My Bag, which is probably the most like hype song on here,
Yeah.
right? Is 15 tracks in. So you go through 14 tracks of like, all right, like here's this and here's that. And then you get to like have that like payoff of like, oh, but Rhapsody can still like just turn up though and be like, you know, like, yeah, my place in hip hop, yeah, relate like the relationships, life, this, that, and then it's like, but now I'm back in my bag, so it's like I can still do all that stuff though.
Mhm.
And I think that's so special when artists can do that and they choose to show you both sides of it, and it's not just like, all right, I got to do this one thing because this is what's gonna go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of it is all about balance, and that's something that we get from this album a lot. I think to one of your points about the way that Rhapsody is positioned in hip hop. I think one song that really getting into the song by song, I think one song that really highlights that is "Look at What You've Done." That might be as far as how Rhapsody views herself in hip hop, that might be the most important track. There are other topics here, and there are like with those other topics, there are also other important tracks. But as far as the hip hop, Rhapsody in hip hop goes, um, where Rhapsody really on the second verse is really the thing that breaks it open for me. Really, she talks about like her not being in the same lane as other female rappers, and feeling like she's underappreciated until she runs into that black girl that is like her, and because of Rhapsody's existence in hip hop, she allows that black girl to be seen. I really thought that was like full circle because like it's not like a like it's not like women in general is not a monolith. Like there are so many like different personalities and stuff like that. Like obviously, but like some people like just some people just don't understand that, and it's sad to say. Like it's sad that I have to say that in the first place. It should just be common sense in general. But like it's not a monolith. Like there's so many different types of like personalities and stuff like that. So Rhapsody being able to like allow for a certain type of black woman to be feel seen is really important, and I think that within itself makes her existence important before we even get to her talent, before we get into her storytelling, her lyricism, etc. I also like that she references to uh also black women rappers who or who are in the same subgenre as her, Chica and Tierra Whack. Tierra Whack just dropped her new album this year, but after like 6 years of waiting. But like Chica has been putting out music as well, and those are other two. Those are also two black artists, black women artists who don't really fit the mold, the prototype, typical mold of a female rapper in 2024. So I like that she shouts them out as well, kind of like being that OG, like, no, you guys can still make it, even though you guys don't fit into that role. So I really like that. I also think Stand Tall is a very important song. And going back to what I said about like how it's not like women aren't monolith. She's talking about Rhapsody is talking about like how the topic of her appearance comes up more than like her artistry. And that also sucks because like again, she's an amazing artist. That should be the topic, the first topic every time we talk about her. But because of the way that she dresses, like she describes herself as dressing as a tomboy, because of that tomboyish style, everybody's always wondering about like, or is she a lesbian? Is she straight? Is she bisexual? And it's like who cares? She's a really good rapper. If she wants to tell us, like, she probably told us, but I don't know. But the point is that I don't really care about that as much. I care more about the music, and feel like she would appreciate if more people were in the same boat as me in terms of caring more about the music instead of like the outside of the music, her like sexual preferences and stuff like that. I found that to be a very powerful track as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like anything in that vein. Like I keep saying, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like it's real life. It's not
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there is such little space now. Like when you and I were right, like first at the point where it's like, all right, we can get our own music down, like set things up for ourselves. You're not just like at the mercy of someone else playing music and you hear it, right? Like, yeah, you could listen to, people who are bubbling at the time, or like Wayne was at the top of his game, you know what I mean? Like all that. So it's like you have the stars, but like there used to be so much more room. At least it felt like it in the greater conversation for someone like Rapsody, where it's like, yeah, I play Future and I play Drake and I play the Metro, you know what I mean? And like all like but then it's like, all right, when I'm like just by myself though, it's like I'm rotating these artists because it means a lot more to me. And I feel like there used to be like way more room
Yeah,
for that artist to exist. And you know what I mean? Like you would get some like, and there's always been, people to look at that sideways and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like you listen to boring music or you listen to like whatever. It's not like you like turn that shit off. You know what I mean? Like I don't
mhm.
want to hear like, but it's like now I feel like that's even more true because I feel like to have success here, you have to be a star, right? You have to, and we've talked about it at nauseum, right? It's like, if you can't go big on TikTok, you're probably not gonna like you're probably not going to have a crazy run right now, right? Because it's like, and that's like, it's so disappointing and it's crazy to me. And obviously, since the wonderful war we just witnessed between Drake and Kendrick, I think there's been a bigger sentiment that like, all right, like things are going to get back to their roots a little bit more, and you're going to have more value placed on something. But like where I stand, it's like, all right, let's see that happen because
Yeah.
I want that to happen. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I would love for that to happen. I have artists that I listen to that you know what I mean. Like I'm the only person I know who listens to that person. I want that person to have more room to carve a lane for themselves and not have it be a thing where it's like, yeah, I like, tried this out, but it was never going to work. So I just gave up, or I changed my whole thing and I got a 6 second viral clip and now like that's what I eat off of and I don't perform anything else. So it's like there are a lot like parts of this album that are disappointing when it's in reference to the current landscape of things. But like you said, that connection, I have to imagine that as like an artist with a real platform, when you start to question that, like having someone come up to you and be like, hey, like your music makes me feel like, like things are possible for me that I didn't think were possible. Like that's huge. And I think it's so important for everyone who listens to all music in general, but especially people who really love hip hop and rap to like have those artists that you listen to when you're by yourself. That's like a little more
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like me and you, like when we text back and forth, right? We're texting about Future, we're texting about Kendrick, Drake, right? But it's like I know you like Lupe Fiasco just as
Oh
much
yeah.
as any of those, right? So like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's what
Mhm.
I think about, and it's
And
like,
and for you, like Larry June.
yeah, right, Larry
Mhm.
June, exactly. And it's like it's not this like, yeah, I think it's important to have that, and Rhapsody falls into that category where it's like, yeah, that's a real artist that I actually connect to. Like I don't connect to Future, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been listening to Drake for 15 years. I don't connect to anything he's saying, right? But like when I put on certain artists, I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that because there's still like a real person there, and it's not just the star that like has like completely gotten rid of the real person.
Yeah, I agree. I think someone when you talk about people basically shitting on music with substance. I think someone who's caught the brunt of that has been J. Cole. I think like that's the first thing that comes to mind because like
Yeah.
he in a way he was similar to the San Antonio Spurs when like it's excellence, but everyone's like, oh, it's boring to watch. I don't want to watch Tim Duncan like shoot off the backboard, da 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 da. Like J. Cole's kind of the same way. Although like a little bit of it is J. Cole's fault because just like
Well,
production
yeah, and
choices
he
and stuff
came
like
in
that.
he came into with like hits,
Yeah.
right? Like Cole came in with hits, so it's like, oh, you're okay, cool. And then it was like for like two whole albums, he was like, no, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that anymore. And
Three,
they were
actually
like,
three.
Yeah, you're right. It was 3 albums. He was like, I'm not doing any of that
Yeah.
anymore. And then, kind of when the pandemic happened, he came back outside and was like, No, I'm killing again. And then,
Mhm.
he got a
Yeah.
little afraid. But it is what it is.
He didn't get afraid. He knew that he shouldn't be there. Anyway, I like how some of the tracks transition into one another as well. I think that's also like a really, especially when I'm noticing, and I've probably felt this way for like the past few years, but this year in particular, what I'm noticing, especially like listening to this album and also listening to the Gunna album that we talked about last week, the tracks that transition into each other, like transitioning is so much more important, I feel like now, especially with streaming, with you being able to like line them up so that as soon as a song ends the other song begins. I think that's so important. And I think the one the best example of that I feel like is the intro track, She's Expecting You to Marlana, where it ends with Felicia Rashad's character, who's the hairdresser, basically asking Rhapsody, "Do you even know who you are?" And Rhapsody's first name is Marlana, and that's the name of the next song, Marlana. And then on that, Rhapsody explores the different subsections of herself. So it's a lot of introspection here. I also like Asteroids. I think that the most important line on Asteroids is when Rhapsody says, "If I had a dick, I'd be in the greatest debates." I think that, like, going back to previous points that I've made about how lyricism isn't as valued on the female side of hip hop. I think that's a really that's probably one of the more true lines, like not like that's probably one of the more impactful lines, I should say,
Yeah.
on this album. Because I think that's true. I think that we would talk about previous Rhapsody albums if she was a man, and she would probably get more love for that. Maybe in the same, maybe not in the same category as like Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole, but maybe like someone like Pusha T or someone like uh even like Lupe Fiasco, like they would still get like the value, or they would
Yeah.
still be valued for that. Which I again, it just sucks. Honestly, it just sucks that Rhapsody has to be in this position because she's a tremendous artist. Towards the end, I like A Ballad for Homegirls. Where Rhapsody and Baby Tate, it's like it kind of seems like a conversation of two friends going back and forth about like oh, this man cheated on me. Why am I taking him back? And then the friend is like, why are you taking him back? Like, I found that to be a good use of storytelling. Um, I also like He Shot Me. I like how that flips the Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff. I Shot the Sheriff. But I that song modernizes it to really talk about more present day police violence, which I really appreciated. And then also I think That One Time is probably another could be maybe the most introspective song that Rhapsody gives us. Particularly talking about, at least how I took it, was that she was in the experience of being the other woman of a man having an affair, and the reason why is because of how she's perceived. Once again, she probably doesn't get the same, well, she says that she doesn't feel like she gets the same attention from potential suitors that other women do because of how she dresses, because of how she is. And because this one man who was basically trying to cheat gave her that attention, she fell victim to being the other woman, and then talks about the emotional and mental aftermath after that, which I felt was really, really good storytelling and really, really good lyricism as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's you listen to this and you're like, yeah, this is supposed to be art. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And I don't want to say that anything isn't art, right? Because it's all art. But there are certain artists that do things and you're like, oh yeah, like this is supposed to be like very well thought out, and you know what I mean? And it like it's in yeah, it's just masterful. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
someone who's been
that's a
doing
good
this
word.
for almost 20 years at this point. You know what I mean? Like I was doing some research before this, just looking things up, and it's like, I mean, some of these people we don't think about it. Like it's been 20 years, right? It's been 20 years of Rhapsody, 20 years of Kendrick Lamar, 18 years of Drake, right? Like some of these people that we don't like, where it's like, yeah, like we kind of grew up and they were just there. It's like, yeah, but like we're at the age now where people have been doing this for close to 2 decades. And so I just think this album, from the cover, like the cover is unbelievable. From the cover to the sequencing to the transitions to the substance to the ins and outs, like it's like, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be. Like this is what people should look at and say, when I make this album, when I sit down, I'm like, I have 22 songs to share, right, with listeners. Like, how do I put it all together? Like, where should they be? How should it be? It's like this is like should be like a blueprint. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
this is how you make an album about yourself and your world and how you relate with the world, and not like, all right, where's the where's the TikTok song at? Where are the bonuses at? And I get it, like it's different. Label like people aren't the artist isn't always the one deciding that, so I understand that. But I don't know. I'm so impressed by this project.
I agree. I think it, like I said before, I think it's like probably the best traditional hip hop album that I've heard this year. You want to talk playback value real quick?
Yeah, so playback for me, like you and I have been talking about, like I'm gonna keep this running because it feels good to listen to. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
even though a lot of it is heavy, it's like yeah, this is like you feel like you're listening to something real. So I'm gonna keep playing this. In terms of objective playback value, I have to imagine it's like very low. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's what this album, like she says it so many times. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you knew the answer, you knew what I was gonna say before I even said it, and I know what you're gonna say because she's right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, objectively, this probably has like a week of playback value because again, it sucks, but she just doesn't have the buzz, and she deserved buzz around her. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the label not pushing her. Maybe it's just like what women hip hop is in 2024. But she just doesn't have the buzz for it to continue. For me to see her continuing like being the topic of conversation for more than a week, at least amongst like the general ether. But for me personally, I see this going for 2 months, maybe even more, because
Yeah,
like you said, like it's really really impactful. It's really there's so much substance here. There's so many things that I also want to keep listening for to discover new things that Rhapsody's talking about here as well. And because of that, I'm just gonna keep listening to it, on
yeah,
top of it being a pleasant listen in the first place.
absolutely.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, so my final thoughts, I kind of said it in my last point, but I think my final thought is like this is a blueprint for how to make a authentic hip hop album in 2024. This is like, like it doesn't sound like it's from the 90s. It doesn't sound like it's from, you know what I mean? It sounds like it's a 2024 album, but it is put together in a way where it's like, all right, this is like the real the foundational, like the through lines that we're all looking for in this music are here. Right? So like that's my final thought, is that this album is how you make like a real personal hip hop album in 2024. As far as my favorite tracks, we talked about two of them already. That One Time would be three for me. Um, Back in My Bag is two because that does go crazy. And then my number one, I'm glad you brought it up earlier, is Look What You've Done.
Mhm. Yeah. For me, on my end, Rhapsody's lyricism and vulnerability come together to create what could be the best traditional hip hop album of the year. My top three tracks, honestly, as we've been going through, talking about they've changed a bit. But my top three are A Ballad for Homegirls featuring Baby Tate, He Shot Me, and Look at What You've Done. All right. This has been the Cat Podcast, episode 507. Don't forget to leave your opinion of Please Don't Cry by Rhapsody in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow Old Milk on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Old Milk Media. Check out oldmilk.co for more information. I'm Nate Sperlin, that is Taylor McLeod, and we will be back when hip hop tells us to be. We are out. Thank you for watching.